Final week of the regular season for the big schools and playoff football for 11B and 9B. It's a wonderful time of year, isn't it? Jody Norstedt here for another Midco Sports Game Ball announcement, sponsored by Farmers Union Insurance. This week's winner from Grand Forks Central delivered a dagger against the #1 team in the state and helped his team secure its most wins in 5 years. More on the knight in shining armor in a bit. A reminder, we have Thursday night lights this week, which almost guarantees to be better than the NFL's weekly Thursday night game, if you've watched any of those recently. Old rivals St. Mary's and Shanley square off in the regular season finale, a 6 o'clock kickoff. You can see it live on Midco Sports 2. Shanley trying to improve its playoff seed, while St. Mary's needs a win to secure a playoff spot. Then we have Varsity Sports Live Friday night, which will put a bow on the Class A regular season and look ahead to the big playoff games in 11B and 9B on Saturday. With that, let's rip the lid off of our top performers from this past week. We had some great ones, including some outstanding playoff performances in the opening round of the 9-man postseason. Well, let's start with a player from the big boy division. Ray Brown was making plays all over the field for Davies in Friday night's win over Century. Brown caught 4 passes for 129 yards, including this breakaway 72-yard touchdown. He also ripped off a 55-yard touchdown run on his only carry in the game. Then on defense, he made this athletic interception. He's been doing it all year on both sides of the ball. No surprise to see him on the top performers list multiple times this fall. North Border won the 6-man state title last year, and now they're on to the second round of the 9-man playoffs after blowing out New Rockford Cheyenne 42-8. TJ Costley was the MVP in the win. He could have changed his name to TD Costley. He scored 4 of them. He passed for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushed for 70, and netted a pair of scores. And all things came in pairs because he picked off 2 passes as well. Tip of the cap to the Surrey Mustangs, who put up 60 points in a first-round win over Mulhall Lansford Sherwood behind big games from seniors Rylan Scheig and Ethan Hansen. Scheig registered 4 touchdowns, and Hansen capitalized on 4 scores as well. Hansen gets the nod on the top performers list by a hair, though, because on 10 touches, he finished with 182 yards and the 4 touchdowns. Then on defense, he added 7 tackles and a pick. They'll need Hansen to be at his best against St. John on Saturday. We had a camera in Mott on Saturday to capture the big games by Henninger County's 𝗕𝗹𝗹 and Matt Heather. 𝗕𝗹𝗹 had a great day throwing the ball and ripped off a big run, but we're giving the nod to Heather, who caught 3 passes for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 64 yards and a score as well, and then he also intercepted a pass and blocked a punt. Bunch of game-changing plays. Huskies picked up a big win over Kidder County. 𝗕𝗺𝐺𝐴 got back on the winning track thanks to a big game by dual-threat QB Logan Miller. The senior passed for 100 yards, rushed for 178, and scored 3 times in the victory over St. Mary's. Miller on the season now has 8 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing scores. Hillsboro Central Valley traveled up to rival Thompson and put on a punishing performance, rushing for 425 yards behind that strong offensive line. Landon Olson lands on the top performer list after rushing for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns on 20 carries. Olson had this angry run that's one of our extra credit play of the week candidates. Love those. If the Bros can continue to run the ball like they did on Friday, well, look out. Des Lacs Burlington is peaking at the right time. They scored a season-high 58 points in the regular season finale win over Stanley. Jake Schaefer, just a sophomore, turned 8 carries into a whopping 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. Nice day. Fargo South's Emmanuel 𝗫𝗍𝗍 was all over our highlights Friday night on Varsity Sports Live. The Bruins senior receiver and defensive back was a great red zone target, hauling in a couple of touchdowns on just 4 catches. He also forced a turnover with a big interception. South now turns its focus to Valley City in a big showdown on Friday in the regular season finale. Cole Tiedemann had one of his best passing games of the season for West Fargo in the win over North. The Packers senior completed 15 of his 22 passes for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. He added a rushing score and leading West Fargo to its 3rd win in the last 4 games. How about a shout out to 6-man football? Jaden Wilson helped Trenton advance to the state championship game by rushing for over 300 yards and scoring 9 touchdowns, 9 in a 60-6 win over White Shield. The Tigers will meet Center Stanton for the 6-man title on Saturday afternoon. So that's a look at your top performers list. Thanks again to everyone who sent us your nominations. A couple more honorable mentions. Laramore's Colter Thorsel ended his prep career with a 300-yard rushing performance in the loss to North Star. I know he's meant a lot to that polar bear program that's really improved the past few seasons. Speaking of North Star, Dane Hagler had a 5-touchdown afternoon in that game. Lincoln Wiseman and Tri Frank were a great duo for Mandan in that win over Shanley. All right, we only have one ball each week, and it's time to tell you who's getting this sucker. Grand Forks Central was a huge underdog entering the week against top-ranked Valley City. The Knights said you can take those odds, the rankings, whatever you look at, and flush it. Dylan Lamont, the senior quarterback for the Knights, led the charge and earned our Midco Sports Game Ball, sponsored by Farmers Union Insurance. He completed 22 of his 34 passes for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. He scored a rushing touchdown in the final minute that tied the game and forced overtime. Then in the second overtime, Dylan threw this ball to Leo Strandell for the walk-off winner. Dylan has now thrown for 12 touchdowns on the season, none bigger than that game winner, though. It helped Central get to 3 wins for the first time in 5 years, and it might have secured them a playoff spot for the first time since 2007. They'll still want to defeat Devils Lake this weekend to leave no doubt, but they do have a 10-point cushion on the Firebirds for the 8th and final playoff spot as it stands right now in the QRF. So congrats to Dylan Lamont and his teammates on earning the game ball this week. We appreciate you watching each and every week. One more game ball next week, then it's a wrap. But make sure to tune in. High school football on Thursday night at 6, Shanley St. Mary's, and Varsity Sports Live come Friday at 10:30. We'll see you then.